Hello, hello to my 6th grade burritos. We're going to go ahead and start our next unit in math today. You took your measurement test on Monday, or you should have taken your measurement test on Monday, hopefully. We're all tied up with the measurement unit. I know we didn't do any actual measurement with rulers or things like that. We were going to do those had we been in the classroom this marking period, but we weren't in the physical classroom together, which made that difficult and made that a challenge. We're going to go ahead and start our next unit in geometry. This will be our last unit in math together. You've gone through algebra, you've gone through measurements, probability, decimals, fractions. You've covered quite a lot of ground in 6th grade math, and we are at the very end with geometry. We're at the end of geometry, so you can pat yourself on the back. You've almost made it through 6th grade math. There's just a little bit left to go. So what is geometry? Let's talk about a focus of focusing in on big picture. What is geometry? Well, geometry is actually one of my favorite areas of math, and I know that I've talked to a couple of you, and you've said you're excited for geometry. Geometry is one of your preferred areas of math. I like geometry a lot. It has to do with shapes, angles, different 3D shapes, 2D shapes. We'll get a little bit into 3D and 3D shapes, but especially 2D shapes, perimeter, area, volume, those type of things. That's what geometry is all about. Now, we would be on chapter 13 of the book because we've been going in order. We've been going there's 14 chapters in the textbook. I told you we wouldn't get to chapter 14. Well, Number 13, chapter 13, is more about angles in geometry. Angles is going to be difficult to do, kind of like measurement, because we're not in the physical classroom together. So we're going to skip ahead to chapter 14. We're going to pass the angles chapter. Angles are important and you need to learn them, but it's going to be super tough to do them at home. So we're going to move on to chapter 14, which is going to be things that you're going to be able to do at home without me there beside you, and you'll be able to do without a protractor and all that kind of stuff. So we're going to be diving into shapes, again, things like area, volume, some of the things you may already know, some of the things maybe changing a concept or two and tweaking it for the new geometry you'll be learning and doing. Today specifically, make sure you have something to write with, something to write on. There won't be any notes per se, but there will be some practice problems. I want you to try some math as we're going through this video, just so you can try and get a grip on it, get some practice, get ready to do the practice and work on your own for what we're going to do today. There will be 6 sections that we'll go through of geometry. It'll take us this week, next week, and then you'll have a final math test just on geometry, just on this unit in the last week of school. So again, we're almost there. We're at the buck end. Today we're going to be talking about area of parallelograms. So the focus of today is to explain to you, number 1, what is a parallelogram if you don't know what that is, and number 2, how do we find the area of them? How do we find kind of the capacity is what the area is looking at, but again, our focus topic of the day for the first 14.1 is area of parallelograms. Maybe you're asking yourself, what is a parallelogram? Well, a parallelogram, it's a pretty basic shape formation. It's four-sided, 4 sides, and 2 of the sides are parallel with each other. So I'm going to get my drawing tool here to show you what I'm talking about. Got my red pen. So these 2 sides are parallel. Parallel lines, hopefully you remember, it means that they run opposite each other and they'll never, ever, ever touch. Those 2 lines could go on and on and on and on and on and on and on. They'll never touch. They're 2 straight lines, they'll never touch. There's 2 other lines here. They'll also never touch. They'll keep going. They'll keep going. So a parallelogram, hence why it has the word parallel in it, it's made up of 4 lines. 2 of them are parallel to each other and the other 2 are parallel to each other. So these 4 lines come together. It's parallelogram. They're all parallel. They'll run and never touch. It's a parallelogram. These parallel lines, again, 2 on the top, 2 on the sides. They'll never touch each other. 4-sided, 4 angles. This is a parallelogram. And today I told you we're going to be focusing on how to find the area of a parallelogram. So a parallelogram, one, you can kind of see this moving animation that I've got going on here. A parallelogram you probably know of is a rectangle. A rectangle would be an example of a parallelogram you're probably familiar with. So our parallelogram, I'm going to draw one on the side here. So we're going to use this equation to find the area of a parallelogram. Our parallelogram, that was a really bad parallelogram. I'm going to draw one on the side here too because my drawing wasn't the best. I apologize about that. So a parallelogram, we're going to be finding the area. So this is our equation. You might want to write this down. I'll be giving it to you as well for some of the problems, but I would go ahead and write it down just so you have it and you know what you're talking about. For the areas of a parallelogram, you want to take the base times the height. The base is what's here on the bottom. It's the bottom number of the parallelogram times the height. The height can be on the inside here. It can be a little dotted line. It may be a dotted line on the outside here, but you're going to take the number that is the base times the height. You're going to take the base times the height. You've probably done area before with rectangles or squares where you take the length times the width. Literally the same exact thing is going on here, except instead of the terms length and width, we use base times height. So here's our equation. Area for a parallelogram equals base times height. So let's put this to good use. Let's put it to practice and test this out. So you'll see these problems like this. It says, find the area. We got our parallelogram here, 15 inches by 8 inches. So remember our equation, area equals base times height. That's our equation for finding the area of a parallelogram. We need to work that out and go through that process to find the area for this parallelogram. So here's what we're going to do. We're trying to find the area. First, let's find the base because we're taking the base times the height. The base is here. Base can be on the top, the bottom. It really doesn't matter. It's just either, again, the top or the bottom. In this case, it's 15. So we'll take 15. That's our base. And we're going to multiply it by the height. The height. Again, the height can be out here. You may see it outside of the parallelogram. You may see it inside with these little dotted lines. So our height in this case is 8. So we got our base, 15, times our height, which is 8. So then you'll just do the math. Okay, what's 15 times 8? You would run the math, 120. 120, but we're not quite done. Our answer is not done. Again, I often tell you that you're not done until you include the unit. So this would be our area, but you need to include the unit. Well, in this case, it's inches. But when we're doing area, we write our unit a little different. We take the unit they give us, and we put a little 2 on top of it. The reason why is because we took inches times inches, so now it's inches squared. So we did our math, base times height. We got 120. Then we wrote our unit inches, and we put the little 2 up top because it's inches squared. Pretty easy peasy. You've probably done area, again, with rectangles or squares. It's very similar to that. Not much different. A lot of similarities in a lot of ways. Here's another one we're going to try. Find the area. 10.3 by 8.6. 8.6 by 10.3. So, area. Let's start out with our equation. Remember this equation I've given you, and you should really memorize and put in your head. Area equals base times height. For a parallelogram, area equals base times height. B for base, H for height. Base times height. So, let's find our base first. Well, our base is on the bottom here this time. Again, it can be on the top or the bottom. So in this case, it's 8.6. So 8.6 is our base. We're going to multiply them together because it's base times height. What's our height? Well, in this case, it's 10.3. 10.3 is our height. It's inside the parallelogram. You might see it on the outside too, but our height is 10.3. So, you run the math. 8.6 times 10.3. And you should remember how to multiply decimals. We did it earlier in the year. You multiply decimals the same way you would any other number. You line it up, and then you just carry the decimal down as it goes. Or you could just round and say, okay, I know 8.6 rounds up to 9. 10.3 would be about 3, so 10 times 9 would be 90. So you know your answer is going to be around 90. You should do some rounding, estimating. But again, you would run the multiplication like normal and just carry and place the decimal at the right place. So 8.6 times 10.3, what is it? Well, it's 88. So 88.58. There won't be any massive decimals that you'll be working with today. You will be working with some, but nothing scary, nothing that you won't be able to tackle. So it's 88.58. And we're all done, right? Wrong. You're not done. I wouldn't accept this answer. You wouldn't get the full credit and full points for it. Why? What's missing? Well, the unit is missing. You need to have that unit. In this case, it's meters. You got that little M. You should already know that that's the abbreviation for meters because we just did that in the last unit. But we're still not done. Remember, you got to put the little 2 above it because we're talking about meters squared. We took the area, we multiplied it together. It's meters squared. So you got your unit, you got it squared, you got 88.58, and you're all done. That answer's good. You could circle it. You You can put a smiley face by it. All is done. All is well with the world, and you can move on. So I'm going to give you this U-try problem. The U-try problem, you got this parallelogram. It gives you the measurement of 15 by 6 or 6 by 15. So go ahead, take a moment, pause the video, and give this problem a try on your own. By now, you should have paused the video and given this problem a try on your own, and I'm going to go ahead and walk you through it now and talk a little bit about it. So we got our equation, area equals base times height. Again, area of a parallelogram equals base, B, times height, H. What's the base of our parallelogram here? Well, it's 15. We got 15. So 15 is our base. We're going to multiply that by the height. The height in this case is inside the parallelogram. Again, sometimes you may see it with the little dotted lines outside. It's the same thing. Don't let that trip you up or scare you. So our height in this case is 6. So let's do our math. 15 times 6. 15 times 6, we would get 90. 90. Are we done? No, we still have to put the units. In this case, there is no units. And sometimes you'll see problems like that. It's very rare. When you don't see units, you can just write the word units and you can put squared. You can put a little 2 above it. We don't know what the unit is. It's obviously some type of unit, but you could just write literally the word units and put a 2 above it. Remember, because it's squared, multiply them together. Even if it doesn't give you a unit, just write out units squared to be safe. If it does give you a unit, use the unit it gives you. So you got 90 units squared. We found the area. Bada bing, bada boom. That one's all done, all settled and squared up. One more U-try problem I'm going to give you. Same type of thing. You're going to find the area of this parallelogram. The picture's there for you. Go ahead and pause the video and give this problem a try. So you should have paused the video and give this problem a try. We're going to walk through it now. So we're going to need our equation first. Area equals base times height. I can't emphasize enough. You're going to want to write that down, memorize it, get it in your head. You're going to need that for this year's math, next year's math. You will never, ever, ever get rid of that need for that area equation. You're going to need it. It's just a part of life. So area equals base times height. Let's run through our math. Our base, we got it down here. It's on the bottom. It's 6. Okay, so that's our base. We want to multiply it with the height. Our height is here inside the parallelogram, 2.5. 2.5. Again, you'll be working with some decimals today. Don't let the decimal multiplication freak you out or trip you out. It's basically the same as normal multiplication. You just move the decimals then once you're done. You work and process through it the same way. If you need the extra help or resource, I highly recommend Khan Academy. Remember, we were using that earlier in the marking period when we were doing online. You can go on there. They have a lot of videos about multiplying decimals. YouTube, I'm sure, has them as well. You can get some help, get some tips if you need the refresher. We also did it earlier in the year. So let's run through our math. 6 times 2.5. So we ran through our math. 6 times 2.5. You would end up with 15. You would end up losing the decimal. Get rid of it. It's 6 times 2.5. You'd end up with just a regular old 15. And we're done, right? No, sir, no, ma'am. Still have to include that unit. It's meters. You'll bring the m over. You'll put squared because we multiplied 2 meters together. So it'd be meters squared. So we got our number. Area is 15 meters, m with a 2 up top. 15 meters squared is our area for this parallelogram. We're all done. That problem solved. All is well. Well, that's all the practice and all the teaching of new concepts I have for math for you today. It's not really too much jumping into 14.1. I think that it takes into account that by 6th grade, you've probably already done area with rectangles and squares. And this is very similar, not too much a difference. Again, you're just memorizing that area equation, base times height, and you're just going through that process, multiplying the number of the base, multiplying it with the height, the base times the height, figuring out the area of the parallelogram. So here's your assignment for you. I'm going to have you do 4 and 5, as well as 8 through 11 on page 548. So you're going to do problems 4, 5, and then 8 through 11. So 8, 9, 10, 11. That's only 6 problems. Yeah, 6 problems. So you're going to do those 6 problems on 548. Not too many, just practicing the area, this equation with parallelograms. Tomorrow we'll start to talk about area of triangles. For a couple days we'll be in area with different shapes. You can look out for that video and that work coming very soon. But again, your assignment 4 through 5, 8 through 11, page 548. If you don't have your textbook, you can find that page on LMS for you. If you do have your textbook, you can use that, and just make sure to turn in your work, your problem, and your answers on LMS when you're finished. Awesome, guys. Keep up the great work. Keep plugging away and fighting hard. I'm proud of all of you. I'm praying for all of you, and I'll talk to you all soon.